الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي بدأ كتابه بالحمد فقال الحمد لله رب العالمين، والحمد لله الذي بدأ خلقه بالحمد فقال الحمد لله الذي خلق السماوات والأرض وجعل الظلمات والنور ثم الذين كفروا بربهم يعدلون. والحمد لله الذي اختتم خلقه بالحمد فقال بعد أن ذكر النار وأهلها والجنة وأهلها وقضي بينهم بالحق وقيل الحمد لله رب العالمين، فله الحمد في الأولى والآخرة وله الحمد في كل وقت وحين حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما ينبغي لجلال وجهه وعظيم سلطانه. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، ونشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله، أرسله ربه بالرحمة المهداة فهدانا به من بعد الضلالة وجمعنا به من بعد الشتات، فجزاه الله عنا خير ما جزى نبيا عن أمته. We begin as we always begin in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. All praise is indeed due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him as He Himself taught us to praise Him, for He began His book, His scripture, the Quran, with praise, saying at the beginning of Surah Al-Fatiha, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He taught us to praise Him, as He deserves to be praised, for He Himself describes the beginning of creation, in the opening of creation, at the beginning of Surah Al-An'am, by saying all praise is due to Allah who created the heavens and the earth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the end of creation in praise by describing the fate of the people of the hellfire and the fate of the people of paradise by saying, and each were judged accordingly in truth, in justice. And it was said, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. And so praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Him, we praise Him as He ought to be praised at every time, in every place, and in every condition. We bear witness that there is no God worthy of worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is His final prophet and His messenger. I was sent a note earlier this week that today is a PD day, and and so I have to adjust my khutbah accordingly. And I see a lot of young people in the gathering, and so I hope that this will be accessible and understandable to everyone. I'm not really going to talk to young people. I'm actually going to talk to old people. And so, but if you're a young person, don't tune off, because I'm talking about young people. So even though I'm talking to old people, I'm talking about all of the young people in this room. And I want to talk about the best thing that we can talk about, which is the example of the Prophet ﷺ. And I want to take us back to the time of the Prophet ﷺ and talk about or think about the society, the community of the Prophet ﷺ, the example of the Prophet ﷺ, and how that compares to us. Of course, there are many ways that we can compare, but I really just want to talk about this one specific thing, which is how did the Prophet ﷺ deal with younger people, and how do we deal with younger people? And right from the beginning, I'm going to say that we have a misconception. We don't understand really what the society of the Prophet ﷺ was like. Islam, when it first came into being, when the Prophet ﷺ started calling people, Islam was a young people's religion. The predominant, the majority of people around the Prophet ﷺ were young people. And by young, I mean young people in their teenage years. And those were the people around the Prophet ﷺ. These are the people that the Prophet ﷺ depended on, people in their teenage years. They were the bulk of the people whose names we remember today. People like Abdullah ibn Abbas, people like Abdullah ibn Umar, people like Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, people like Asma bint Abi Bakr, people like Sayyidah Aisha bint Abi Bakr, the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ, Fatima, and so on and so forth, and we can keep going through the names. It's an exercise for any of us who haven't done this to go through the names of the major Sahaba, men and women, that lived with the Prophet ﷺ, that assumed positions of authority or responsibility, that the Prophet ﷺ imparted knowledge to, and so relied on for Islam to survive. And just describe or go through Wikipedia actually has all of the dates of birth, or the years of birth, and go through and figure out how old everyone was. You'll find these were the ages: 10 years old, 12 years old, 14 years old, 15, 16, 17. You'll find some people in their 20s. One of the oldest Sahaba, one of the oldest people around the Prophet ﷺ was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. He was 38 years old. Right? He was just 2 years younger than the Prophet ﷺ. And so how did that work? Why does someone have to tell me, to warn me that today's a PD day, and so be careful with your khutbah? The assumption is most of our khutbahs don't speak to young people. Why do we have to spend effort? Why do we have to work at speaking to our younger brothers and sisters when the Prophet ﷺ had so many people around him that were young? And to answer that question, of course, takes more than the 10 minutes that we have, but I want to give a couple of examples. We all know that people behave the way we treat them. If you treat people as responsible individuals, they behave responsibly. This is a psychological phenomenon called priming. How people think of themselves is how they behave. And so how we treat people, what we expect of people, is what they will do. If we treat young people as kids, as children, then that's how they will behave. If we treat them as young people who are responsible, young people who have a role to play, they will behave that way. And that is what the Prophet ﷺ did. And you see this in how Islam came to us. I spoke a few weeks ago about a collection of ahadith that summarize the entirety of what Islam stands for. That is the 40 Nawawi collection. These are 42 ahadith compiled by Imam al-Nawawi, who himself was a very young man when he did the bulk of his work. And these 42 ahadith are al-ahadith allati alayha madar al-Islam. They are the ahadith that summarize Islam in its entirety. If you read these 42 ahadith, you understand Islam from its beginning to its end. go through the 42 ahadith and figure out how old were the companions of the Prophet ﷺ who narrated these ahadith. You will find Abdullah ibn Umar, who again was 12 years old when he became Muslim. You will find in one of the earliest ahadith, actually one of the most important ahadith, you'll find Abdullah ibn Abbas. When the Prophet ﷺ died, Abdullah ibn Abbas was 12 years old, 13 maybe at the most. And so he narrated this important hadith, and there are entire books written about this hadith. It's actually called Hadith ibn Abbas. It's so important and so famous. Please come forward. There are no spaces in the back. Please come forward. Jazakumullah khair. So Abdullah ibn Abbas, when he narrated this hadith, may have been 9 or 10, right, at the most. 9 or 10 years old. And he says, I was behind the Prophet ﷺ there, I was riding behind him. Right? And the story here is that the Prophet ﷺ was given an animal, and so he was riding on it, and he said to Abdullah ibn Abbas, come ride behind me. فَأَرْدَفَنِي خَلْفَهُ. Come ride behind me. So he pulled him up behind him, and as they were riding, the Prophet ﷺ says to Abdullah ibn Abbas, he says, Ya ghulam, young man, inni u'allimuka kalimat. I'm going to teach you a few words. Pay attention to what I'm going to say. This is the Prophet ﷺ talking to a young man of 9 or 10 years old, maybe 11 at the most. And this hadith comes to us now 1400 years later. People have memorized it, people have written essays on it, people have written books on it, and it is considered to be one of the most important traditions in Islam, one of the most prophetic, one of the most important teachings of the Prophet ﷺ taught to a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old. Young man, I will teach you a few words. احفظ الله يحفظك. Preserve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He will preserve you. Preserve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, direct yourselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will direct Himself towards you. احفظ الله تجده تجاهك. If you ask for something, ask only of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you seek help only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Put your reliance, your dependence on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إذا سألت فاسأل الله وإذا استعنت فاستعن بالله. واعلم أن ما أخطأك لم يكن ليصيبك وأن ما أصابك لم يكن ليخطئك. And know that whatever happens to you would never have missed you. And whatever misses you would never have happened to you. Right? Have confidence in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Know that things happen in this world only because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes them to be so. And then the Prophet ﷺ reminds him that there is a role for us to play. The reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not a passive thing. It's not we say, I rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then I'm done. وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ النَّصْرَ مَعَ الصَّبْرِ. Know that you will achieve what you want by persevering for it, by being patient, by working for it. You will achieve what you are looking for if you work hard at it and be patient despite setbacks. وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ النَّصْرَ مَعَ الصَّبْرِ. And the hadith continues, and it's famous. I would recommend that you read it in the 40 Nawawi collection. There's another example which comes right after that, and it is one considered again to be one of the most important ahadith in the understanding of Islam. And it is narrated by a young boy, a young man, by the name of Nu'man ibn Bashir. And Nu'man ibn Bashir was also 10 years old when the Prophet ﷺ died. So this hadith that we consider to be a foundation of how we understand Islam, it was narrated by this young boy when he was 9 years old at the most, maybe younger. عن النعمان بن بشير رضي الله تعالى عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يقول إن الحلال بين وإن الحرام بين وبينهما أمور مشتبهات لا يعلمهن كثير من الناس. So Nu'man ibn Bashir, 9 or 10 years old, says, I heard the Prophet ﷺ say, what is halal, what is permissible, is clear. What is impermissible, what is haram, is clear. And there are many gray areas that many people do not know. So if you avoid falling into this gray area, then you're in the clear. And if you keep falling into the gray, then you will eventually fall into the haram. If you keep kind of sort of playing close to the edge of the pool, you're going to fall in. This is the hadith of An-Nu'man ibn Bashir. Again, many books written on the explanation of this hadith and what it means for us as Muslims, narrated by a 9 or 10-year-old. There's another hadith further down in the collection, also narrated by Abdullah ibn Umar, again another young man. And again, I want you to pay attention to the language of the hadith. The hadith itself is very short. He says, رضي الله تعالى عنهما, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with both Abdullah and with his father Umar. He says, the Prophet ﷺ said to me, be in this world as if you are a stranger or someone who's merely passing through. Be in this world as a stranger or someone who is just passing through. What he meant is, what the Prophet ﷺ meant is, don't get attached to things in this world. Right? We're visiting here. Our visit can be comfortable, should be comfortable. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's a visit. We're passing through this world. Our final destination is another world. But so a very profound meaning to be imparting to a young man. But there's something that precedes this, which is Abdullah ibn Umar says, أخذ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بمنكبي ذات يوم وقال لي يا عبد الله كن في الدنيا كأنك غريب أو عبيد. Right? So he says, the Prophet ﷺ took me by the shoulder one day, held me by the shoulder, put his arm on my shoulder, and then he said to me, Ya Abdullah. And then he says the hadith, be in this world as if you are a stranger or someone who's passing by. So think about the Prophet ﷺ saying to Abdullah ibn Abbas, come right behind me, I will teach you something. Walking up to Abdullah ibn Umar, putting his arm on the shoulder of Abdullah ibn Umar and saying to him, let me tell you something important. 10 years old, 11 years old, maybe 15 or 16 years old. So how many of us, when we go back to the example of our society, our community, and the community of the Prophet ﷺ, our example and the example of the Prophet ﷺ, how many of us pay attention to young people in our community and feel that they are worth saying important things to? These ahadith, by the way, whether it is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar or the hadith that are narrated by Sayyidah Aisha or by Nu'man ibn Bashir or Abdullah ibn Abbas, many of these ahadith were narrated only by them. Right? They're ahadith that the Prophet ﷺ only taught to these individuals. They weren't sitting in a group or in a khutbah like this. The Prophet ﷺ made an effort to reach out, to use the opportunity of interacting with these young people. He valued them enough to tell them something that is important and foundational about Islam. And if it did not reach us, our understanding of Islam will be so much more impaired. How often do we do that? How often are our young brothers and sisters who are 10 or 12 or 14, how often are they in places where we discuss important things? How often do we entrust them with things that are valuable or important? How often do we ask their opinion about something? The Prophet ﷺ asked the opinions of young people on numerous occasions, the most famous of which was Uhud. We don't have time to go through the example of Uhud specifically, but the Prophet ﷺ had an opinion about the Battle of Uhud. He wanted to stay in Medina and defend Medina. And others, including specifically young people who wanted to fight, wanted to leave Medina and go out and meet the enemy outside of Medina. And the Prophet ﷺ, at the end of the day, went with their opinion. And then they felt bad, right? They knew that was not the opinion the Prophet ﷺ had. And so when the Prophet ﷺ came out of his house, having worn his armor, they said, well, let's stay. We'll stay in Medina. And having asked their opinion and having followed that opinion, the Prophet ﷺ said there's no turning back. We are not going to revisit a decision in the absence of new information. ما كان لنبي أن يضع لحمته إذا لبسها حتى يقاتل. That a prophet is not, was never meant to take off his armor once he has put it on until he has fought, right? Until the war is done. And when Uhud turns out horribly, and the Prophet ﷺ loses Hamza, his uncle, and loses 70 other Muslims, and some of them in the most horrible way, and it's an agonizing and painful defeat, he doesn't turn around and say, I should never have listened to you. Or puts it in the back of his head, I'm never going to listen to young people again. And the Quran comes down, is revealed even after all this happens, and reaffirms that this was the right thing to do. وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. You should consult with people. Bad outcomes do not impact the fact that the process was right. Listening to young people. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anh, used to have Abdullah ibn Abbas in his majlis. And Abdullah ibn Abbas by that time was still 15, 16 years old. But by that time, there were many other older people around Umar ibn al-Khattab. And they would say to him, why are you bringing this young boy, this young man, to sit in this place of importance? We have experience, we're older people, we have white hair. Why is this young man here? And Umar ibn al-Khattab, radiallahu ta'ala, would say to them, you have no idea. You don't know what this young man knows. Right? So people will say, and I've heard this over and over again, say, of course, if we had Abdullah ibn Abbas here, or if we had Abdullah ibn Umar, if those, or Sayyidah Asma, or Sayyidah Aisha, those were the young people that we're talking about, and they were with us today, it would be a different story. But our young people are not like that. To which I would say, yes, but we are not Umar and Uthman and Abu Bakr and Khadija. Right? So let's all be humble about our positions and understand that that is what the Prophet ﷺ was trying to teach us. We are one community, old and young, men and women. We are, as the scholars say, رب واحد قبلة واحدة مشاعر واحدة. We have one God, we have one Prophet, one book, one Qibla. Islam was never meant to be divided by lines of either race or gender or age. And the example of that lies with the Prophet ﷺ, who brought everyone together around him and dealt with everyone with the respect that is owed to them, including young people. There are many more things about the example of the Prophet ﷺ we can talk about, but I want to leave you with these pieces. The Prophet ﷺ reached out to young people. He touched them, both spiritually and physically. He understood that they have a role to play, that they were important in transmitting the faith to subsequent generations. He relied on them for things that he did not rely on other people. And in a tradition that is variably narrated, it has some weakness in it, he says, "Nasarani shabab wa khadalani shiyukh." That it was the young people that came to my assistance, it was the young people that came to my support, and it was the old people that let me down. So let's remember the benefits of young people. Let's remember that they will be as we treat them, as we deal with them. And let's reconsider who sits at the tables of important decisions in our community so that more young people are doing so. More young people, both men and women. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم ولكم واستغفروه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى. I want to just share a couple of pieces that were handed to me. Brother Ali Najd al-Daoud, who's the father-in-law of Dr. Munir, is in his final days. So please make dua for him that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala eases his transition to the next abode. And also, please make dua for Brother Ibrahim Lubyankic, who is also critically ill, and is unwell. So make dua for him, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may ease his suffering and grant him shifa, inshallah. عباد الله اعلموا أن الله أمركم بأمر عظيم بدأ به بنفسه وثنى به على ملائكة عرشه واختتمه بكم أيها المؤمنون، حيث قال عز من قائل: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم، وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم ارفع مقتك وغضبك عنا ولا تؤاخذنا بما فعل السفهاء منا ولا تسلط علينا بذنوبنا من لا يخافك ولا يرحمنا. اللهم لا تدع لنا في يومنا هذا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا عيبا إلا سترته ولا دينا إلا قضيته ولا مريضا إلا شفيته ولا غائبا إلا سالما غانما إلى أهله رددته ولا طالبا إلا نجحته ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة لك فيها رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا قضيتها ويسرتها يا أرحم الراحمين. عباد الله اعلموا أن الله أمركم بثلاث ونهاكم عن ثلاث: أمركم بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى ونهاكم عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم. Remember Allah and He will remember you. واشكروه يزدكم. Thank Him, He will give you forevermore. واستغفروه يغفر لكم. Seek His forgiveness, He will surely grant it to you. وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
استقيموا واعتدلوا. Straighten your lines. Stand shoulder to shoulder. Do not give any gaps. Just keep it down. Make space for people in the back if you can.
الله أكبر.
الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ولوطا آتيناه حكما وعلما ونجيناه من القرية التي كانت تعمل الخبائث إنهم كانوا قوم سوء فاسقين وأدخلناه في رحمتنا إنه من الصالحين. ونوحا إذ نادى من قبل فاستجبنا له ونجيناه وأهله من الكرب العظيم ونصرناه من القوم الذين كذبوا بآياتنا إنهم كانوا قوم سوء فأغرقناهم أجمعين. وداود وسليمان إذ يحكمان في الحرث إذ نفشت فيه غنم القوم وكنا لحكمهم شاهدين ففهمناها سليمان وكلا آتينا حكما وعلما وسخرنا مع داود الجبال يسبحن والطير وكنا فاعلين. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. وعلمناه صنعة لبوس لكم لتحصنكم من بأسكم فهل أنتم شاكرون. ولسليمان الريح عاصفة تجري بأمره إلى الأرض التي باركنا فيها وكنا بكل شيء عالمين. ومن الشياطين من يغوصون له ويعملون عملا دون ذلك وكنا لهم حافظين. وأيوب إذ نادى ربه أني مسني الضر وأنت أرحم الراحمين فاستجبنا له وكشفنا ما به من ضر ووهبنا له أهله ومثلهم معهم رحمة من عندنا وذكرى للعابدين. اللهم سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله